So what that means is I see people individually and I teach classes on all kinds of things like weight management, general nutrition, cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, blood pressure, quitting smoking, heart failure. So lots of different things. It's a really fun job. My role in the Kaiser system is to help people work on lifestyle changes. So that's diet and exercise, right? We have pharmacists and doctors who prescribe medicines, and we have a registered dietitian and she prescribes diets. But I basically just try to help people understand how does your food affect your health. So today specifically I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about diabetes and heart disease. Does anyone know what diabetes is? Give us a succinct rundown of what diabetes is. Does someone go ahead?
Diabetes is like something like where your blood sugar is like really imbalanced.
Yes.
You have either high or low insulin.
Exactly. So there's this hormone that your body makes called insulin, right? And it's produced by an organ called the pancreas. And for whatever reason, with type 2 diabetics, what's happening is the pancreas is not making enough insulin, or the insulin that we're making is not working correctly. So we don't have that hormone to utilize all the blood sugar, which is, basically the fuel that we get from all of our carbohydrate foods. So it's sitting in our bloodstreams, right? So when we draw blood sugars, we see that they're usually too high. And that's diabetes. What it does over time, really high blood sugars start to damage blood vessels, and they put us at a higher risk for heart attack and stroke. So it causes a lot of long-term complications. What about heart disease? Who knows anything about heart disease? What does that mean?
Where I know in some cases where the muscle can start almost eroding, or it can start shriveling up in a way where it doesn't work, or it just completely stops, or it can just cause long-term or short-term problems.
Yes. And then what causes that is, go ahead.
What causes it is, people say a lot of the time smoking causes it, and also hardening of the arteries, so that, hardening of the arteries, if your arteries harden, they can't, get all the blood back to the appropriate amount of blood through the arteries, so it just kind of backs up and creates blood clots, and that's kind of what starts heart attacks.
You got it. That's exactly right. So as this plaque accumulates and hardens and maybe breaks off, it causes a blockage, and that decreases the blood flow to the heart or to the brain, and that starts to kill off the muscle, right? Sometimes completely, but sometimes partially, and we see these complications of people who can live through a heart attack or a stroke, but they're usually left with some long-term implications. Do any of you guys have a family member who has diabetes or who has had a heart attack or a stroke? So you can see right here that this is touching pretty much everyone in the room, right? And what I would like to tell people is, I'm teaching a heart failure class every month here. We teach 2 in Vallejo, and we teach a cardiac class. I teach 3 diabetes classes in Napa, and all of those classes are full. That's every month. So that means that many new diagnoses are happening every month just here in our community, right? So just to give you some idea, we've got about 26 million people in the United States suffering from diabetes. It's costing us about $245 billion a year. And California has the highest rate of diabetes. And it costs California about $27.5 billion every year, just for diabetic care. That's just for diabetes. So it's a big issue, right? So, we're not going to talk about genetics today, and we're not going to talk about smoking, although those are huge factors for diabetes and heart disease. But what I wanted to specifically talk about today is diet. So does anyone know what kind of foods affect our hearts and our blood sugars?
Something like a lollipop. It gives you more energy, raises your blood sugar.
Right. So sugar. Sugar makes your blood sugars go up, right? Go ahead.
Food high cholesterol.
High cholesterol, right. So what we know is even more than the cholesterol in foods, the saturated fat in foods is what accumulates and can harden and break off and cause blockages.
Like greasy fast food.
Greasy fast food, yes. Anything else to add? So it's a lot about the fats that we eat and the types of fat that we eat, and it's also about the kinds of sugars that we eat, the kind of carbohydrates that we eat. So I wanted to do a little demonstration for you guys. Can I get a volunteer? You, Sarah. All right, so I'm going to have you come back here so everyone can see what you're doing. And what I'm going to have you do, so I want you to think about the number one ordered thing at McDonald's. Has anyone ever been to McDonald's? Maybe once. Okay, so the number one ordered meal at McDonald's is what? What's the most popular item at McDonald's? Big Mac. Okay, so if you eat a Big Mac value meal, that's large French fries and a large Coke, you're consuming about 70, how much is that? Total, sorry, should have done this a little more organized. 54 grams of fat, which is the equivalent of about what's in this amount of butter. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. It's kind of melting as the day goes. Okay, and we're going to put in 24 teaspoons of sugar. So can you guys help him count that out?
One. Two. Three. Four. Five.
I'm trying.
Six. Come go back. 7. 8. 9. 10. Yeah.
Or the rest of it.
12. 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. 18. 20. 5 more. 23.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
So, when you go to McDonald's and you order a Big Mac, you can just leave it in the teaspoon. You don't have to stir it in the sugar, just so they can see it. So I'll just put it on the table. To order a Big Mac value meal, you're eating about 59 grams of fat, 24 teaspoons of sugar, and about a teaspoon of salt. That's in one meal.
I don't get those.
So just so you know, maybe you don't order that. It doesn't sound like you guys. You can sit down if you want.
Oh, okay.
Even if you don't order that, what I want you to know is that's what my patients tend to be eating, right? So a lot of the people that I see when they come in and they've been recently diagnosed with diabetes, they're eating fast food at least once a week, sometimes more than that. Some people are eating fast food every day because it's easy. So one of the major risk factors for diabetes and heart disease is obesity, right? Which means that people are overweight, usually carrying at least 20, 25 pounds more than they should be. And a lot of them are carrying a lot more than that. So statistically in our country, about 1 in 4 people is obese. So just looking out into the room, imagining that it would pretty much be everyone sitting, you know, on this first table, you know, 1 in 4, right, would be obese. So that's the number one risk factor. And the number one prevention and cure for obesity is what? The number two. Yes.
Salad.
Diet and exercise. So that's my job, right? That's what I do. I have to talk to people and meet with them and try to figure out how we can make changes to their diet. So what do you imagine are some of the obstacles that I come across? Yes.
How am I going to fit this in my daily life?
Time, right? Yes.
How am I gonna afford not to eat at the fast food restaurant?
Yeah. So for a lot of people, they feel like it's going to be really costly to make changes.
Fresher vegetables tend to cost more than not fresher foods and or unhealthy junk food.
Yeah. So a lot of times, some of our junk food is subsidized and ends up costing less than fresh vegetables.
A lot of people aren't willing to commit, and they've gone on diets and they've gone back and forth and back and forth.
Right. So there's a level of commitment, right? That can be a challenge, and also just maybe even a little gun shy, I like to say. Like they're not really ready that they want to try something new because they've tried it in the past and it hasn't stuck with them.
They just don't want to.
They don't want to. Yeah, that happens. Yes.
Impulsivity.
Right. So specifically you mean maybe they have a good intention, but the McDonald's is right there and I'm just going to pull in and grab something really quick.
Complete and utter laziness.
Yes. Complete and utter laziness, he says. Yeah. So I have a lot of challenges at my job, and I decided that it might be fun to talk to you guys about some of this stuff. So I want to talk a little bit more about obesity, and then I want to talk to you about my proposal to you. So this is fat.
Real fat?
No, it's plastic.
Okay. I was like,
Anyone want to guess how many pounds this is? A model of how many pounds of fat? Go ahead.
like 5?
5.
Oh.
Exactly right.
I love being correct.
Did other people think it was more or less? Less. So this is 5 pounds of fat. So if anyone wants to hold this and touch it,
I want to touch it.
send it around.
Shake it. Shake it.
Like wiggling.
So, not outside of just texture, because it's kind of a funky model. It's made out of, I don't even really know what. It's kind of greasy.
It's greasy.
But we named it Bob. So when I look at that, I often think about how just sort of imbalanced it is and kind of awkward it is. And I want you guys to think about if you had to carry that all day long, and what if you had to carry 25 extra pounds all day long, and some people are carrying 100 extra pounds all day long. So sometimes it's easy to say people are just lazy, they don't want to make changes, but I always have to remember that sometimes people are tired, right? Sometimes they're doing other kinds of work, they're being parents, they're doing their jobs. So I came to you guys today because I was thinking that, tapping into your brains might be helpful for our adult population. So how many of you guys like to cook? Good. Wow, really good. So we were talking about the idea of you guys creating a cookbook for Kaiser patients. So it would involve you guys doing a little more research about heart disease and diabetes, learning about the disease process, learning about how food affects disease process, learning about what are the good standards for recipes and for meals, and then, at whatever level you are in the kitchen, creating a recipe that would meet those standards and putting it together into a book, and it would be something that I could utilize with my patients, maybe give out in classes. But one of the biggest obstacles for my patients is making the changes, and what I think is if I can tap into all your different backgrounds and skill levels, we could come up with something that would be a good range of really simple, healthy, quick and easy meals. And then maybe we could do some cultural things, maybe some traditional cultural foods that you, let's say you do homemade spaghetti sauce at your house. How can you make it healthier? Can you add vegetables to it? Can you use a leaner protein? Can you put it over whole wheat pasta? So thinking about recipe modifications based on things that you make in your home traditionally. And then maybe for those of you who are a little more experienced in the kitchen, you know, coming up with something really innovative and creative and new, you know, using ingredients that you're curious about or, you know, that you've never tried before. So what do you guys think? Does that seem feasible?
Yeah.
Okay, what questions do you have? Yes. What else is in here? Good question. So we've got, I think, 2 pounds of fat and 1 pound of fat, and this is a pound of muscle. So like in my weight class, we talk a lot about, sometimes people get confused and they say muscle weighs more than fat. This doesn't really weigh more than fat. It's more compact, yes.
Math.
Are we creating a cookbook or a recipe?
I think individually you will all do recipes, or maybe in groups you'll do recipes, and then we'll collaborate them into a cookbook. That would be kind of a good variety of things. What else? So does that seem like a pretty reasonable challenge?
Alright, so just a quick announcement. Again, right now it's not storytelling time. So if your name is trying to tell you stories, please ask them to state it.
You put that on the table, it seems to be too much of a distraction.
I was very excited. Okay, so Mr. Wolf and I are going to be able to help you with questions that you have about the project and the structure of the project, how you graded, things like that. Kristen's going to be able to give you some really good insight on how to best meet the needs of people that you're trying to reach. So try to think of, we're going to give you a minute to talk with your group. Try to come up with a couple questions you might have for our guests, specific, knowing what